everybody, what's going on? It's Slick the Gamer, Scott W. Perry here, and it is time for another edition of Play Favorites, where I list my favorite games, consoles, everything from a specific category. And for this one, I decided to go to one of my all-time favorite consoles, which is the PlayStation. Now, the original Sony PlayStation came out in 1995. Originally, Sony had made a deal with Nintendo to create a CD-based system as a complement to its Super Nintendo. And it was announced as early as 1992. They had talked about coming together and bringing this to fruition. Unfortunately, they broke off their agreement, and Sony decided to branch out on their own and create the Sony PlayStation console. And this came out in 1995. In I believe September of 1995 at a bargain price at the time of $299, $300. And it competed mainly with the Saturn. The Saturn was doing, Sega wanted to get into the next generation with Saturn. And in a brilliant dose of marketing, Sony just came out when Sega talked about their whole console and everything, and the Saturn was a price of $399. Sony just came out and just said $299, a full $100 less than the other consoles. So that really drew a lot of people's attention, like, oh, something is interesting here. And it took a little time at the beginning for PlayStation to really hit off. I managed to buy one when it first came out because I was curious. And, the first few games were pretty much ports of arcades and some other things, but there were some really, really good games that came out of it. And I just want to talk about some of my favorites with it. The game that really solidified me, it's not on this list because I wanted to do one per franchise, but the game that really made me love the system a lot was the first Resident Evil game. All right, that's a hint of what's to come, but it really showed the capabilities of what this console could do. All right, now it's interesting because one of the games that is one of my favorites, it's the Marvel Superheroes game, fighting game. I actually prefer it for the arcades over the PlayStation, and I don't have it for PlayStation, so it's not on this list. But I wanted to begin, since I've been talking a lot about wrestling games, there was one of the games that I liked overall for it, and it's one of my favorite games on there. It's actually two that I wanted to mention real quick. I'm going to talk to them more in detail in my Retro Chronicles series. But the one game I really loved that I played a lot of was Attitude for PlayStation. And the reason why I chose this one, while it's not the best, it was the first game that had a full roster of superstars. Whereas I've been talking about, you got 10, you got 12, they were going up to like 16 or 18. This had 40 in there. And for the first time, I really felt like I was in control of the WWF in video game form, because you had everybody in there, from Stone Cold Steve Austin to Kane to Undertaker to all the members of DX. And even then, you had Shawn Michaels, who was injured in the game. You had Jerry Lawler. You had a nice inclusion with Dr. Death Steve Williams, which came out of left field in a way. Mark Mero, Sable, Chyna. Edge makes his video game debut in the game, Big Boss Man. And if you played the PlayStation version, if you hit a certain button on the selection screen, you had different versions of that character, which none of the other versions that came out had it. For example, if you wanted to play as Farouk, he came out as the Acolyte. But if you hit another button, he has his Nation of Domination outfit on there. And I thought that was very important. To me, it made me feel like I was in control. It's like, all right, the Nation Farouk is gone. Now we have the Acolyte Farouk. So for me, that was pretty good to have that, But Attitude is definitely one of my favorite WWF games for the PlayStation. My absolute favorite WWF game was the last one that came out, and that was SmackDown 2, Know Your Role. Granted, the load times suck, but the roster in it, WWF in 2000 had the best roster ever. And they were able to get so many different people in it. There are some quirks with it I still don't like, but the fact you had an amazing roster, nice arcade style gameplay, it was difficult, but you had all the titles are in there. It really represented the Attitude Era well, and it's a game I still enjoy and play to this day. So those are two right there. But enough about wrestling games. Let's talk about some other types of games. And, you know, you can't really talk about PlayStation without talking about some of the popular franchises that spawned with it. And I remember in 1998 hearing for the first time about a lot of young men having crushes on a female explorer that they wanted to basically explore with, if you catch my drift. But it opened up a lot of doors and caused a lot of things. That would be Tomb Raider and Lara Croft. And they released 4 games for the PlayStation. But my favorite of the 4 would have to be Tomb Raider 2. This was hard as hell. There was one part it took me months to get past, but I haven't played it in a while, but I remember after playing the first one and beating it, I just remember 2 having a much stronger challenge and a better physical attribute with it. Like I said, I like games that are challenging but not frustrating. And PlayStation, to me, it was an era where games were that, where you weren't getting frustrated, you weren't like getting to that point. You had to be precise in your jumps, and you had to be precise in your actions in this game. And I thought this encapsulated it very, very well. Definitely out of the whole Lara Croft series, this was definitely my favorite. You know, moving on, another series that is popular today got their start on PlayStation, but in a different way. You know, in 1998, there was a movie I saw. I went to the first screening, and it was something I never did before. I saw the movie, I came out, and I went and bought a ticket again and went to the very next screening for it. That movie was Saving Private Ryan. The director is Steven Spielberg, one of my biggest influences in anything today. And based on the strength of Saving Private Ryan and Spielberg himself being an avid video gamer, he wanted to create a game in that aspect. And what he came up with really is a fantastic game, and that's Medal of Honor. And you know, DreamWorks put it out, Electronic Arts put it out, but a lot of people involved in this game went on to help with the Call of Duty franchise. You know, and in this game, you're just a soldier in World War II, and you're fighting in the missions. It's very straightforward, first person. It really kickstarted a whole new genre with it. It took what was getting popular with Doom and Quake and Duke Nukem and put it in a realistic World War II setting. And you know, and in this game, you get to do what you know, what Brad Pitt likes to do in his spare time, which is killing Nazis. So how can you not enjoy that? But the gameplay, the you know, the precision on a lot of things, you know, it's rated T. There was not a lot of blood in it, so it didn't have to. It made its point across of getting what you wanted to do without getting particularly bloody or gory, which was very important with it. And I felt this is a very important game for PlayStation. It's one of my favorites and one that I still play to this day. Now, speaking of that, I am a fan. No, I don't mention it a lot, but I am a fan of full motion video games. When they first came out, I was intrigued by it. The technology wasn't there yet. It's interesting that now it's sort of making a comeback. But there are games that played better on the PC if you had them, and they were great with it. But I had them for the PlayStation version, and it was one I played a lot, and I was always enthralled by this one. I really liked Wing Commander 4, The Price of Freedom, and I have 3, and 3 probably is a better game in terms of fighting a space battle and you know, but Wing Commander 2 was the first time I really felt like I was taking part in a movie in terms of how they did that. And 4 just had a better story with it. That's probably why I like playing it better. In this game, you're playing as Mark Hamill, playing Colonel Christopher Blair. You're a war hero, and you come across a conspiracy of basically there's this thing called the Border Worlds who are threatening war, and Blair finds out that there's a little bit more to it. There might be some corruption and sabotage going in. But, you know, at the time you had Mark Hamill, you had Malcolm McDowell, a fantastic actor, the late Jason Bernard, who is a great character actor, who passed away shortly after this game came out in it. Tom Wilson from Back to the Future, you know, played a real asshole in this. It's funny, he knows how to play an asshole really well, but in real life, he's one of the nicest human beings you ever want to meet, from what I've heard. but it has a really, really stellar cast. Robert Russler, I remember in a lot of 80s films, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Vamp, plays the villain in this. And if you blink and you miss it, you'll see Casper Van Dien from Starship. This is like months before Starship Troopers doing like a little blink and you miss it cameo. So if you look at a lot of full motion videos, a lot of actors have gotten their start with it. I might do a clip on that just to show it, because it's pretty incredible who got their start in some of these. As a matter of fact, in Wing Commander 3, Josh Lucas got one of his first roles was in that one. But I really like the gameplay in it. The story is really good. It's 4 discs, so it takes a long time for it. But the acting is really spot on. There's a lot of great character actors in this. You have the late John Spencer, who would win Emmys for The West Wing, playing a pivotal role in this. Peter Jason, John Carpenter, regular, playing a great part in this. Richard Riley, who has been a great character actor in a lot of films. So you have a lot of prestige in there, and it really shows in bringing the storyline together with it. And I really enjoy playing it. I would prefer it on the PC, but I'm putting it on my PlayStation favorites because that's where I played it the most. One game, I will say, we're going to get to the top of it. I got 3 more left. But it'd be hard pressed to talk about PlayStation without mentioning, as you can see, a lot of my titles are more adult titles. There are a lot of kid titles that came out, and I didn't really play them because, I was 18 when PlayStation came out. So I kind of gravitated more towards some of these adult games. And PlayStation and Sony knew what they were doing, because they were definitely getting the gamers who have been gaming their whole lives and wanted to try something new. So they were very smart in that. And with the success of Resident Evil, Konami wanted to get into the game there well. And as a result, they created probably this creepiest, scariest game on the console, and that's Silent Hill. And this is a rare game to get. I have the greatest hits version of it. If you have a copy of this intact, you could probably sell it for about $250 to $300. I'm not kidding. It's become a rarity, and it's very popular. I mean, the town itself is creepy. The atmosphere is really good, although it's dated. And I think Silent Hill 2 is a much better game. The original still creeps me out when I play it. I like playing it with the lights out and a little dark, and it's one I still haven't beaten. I've beaten 2, but I haven't beaten this one yet, and I hope to beat it one day. But I have to list it as one of my favorites because I just love getting into the town and getting into the story, and some of the visuals, even for a PlayStation 1 game, are incredible. Now, there are 2 games I have to mention. They're the last 2 games left, and I'm really torn because when I say which is my absolute favorite, I'm not too sure. So it's usually a toss-up, but I have to give. I'm gonna try to talk to them both as if they are my favorite. But the one I'm going to talk to you about first is a game that changed everything. And for everybody who knows me, you can see it behind me. I'm a big Metal Gear fan. And I remember being a little disappointed with Snake's Revenge and liking it, but having no idea that there was a Japanese version that came out with Kojima. I had played Snatcher on Sega CD, which has a character called Metal Gear, so I knew it was the same guy doing it, and I really liked the gameplay with it. And Snatcher really showed where gaming would go. It wasn't until 1998 when this game came out, it really blew doors open on a lot of things and really changed the game for it. Better games for this franchise have come out since, but I have to give a shout out to Metal Gear Solid. This blew me away when I first played it. As soon as I saw Metal Gear, I'm like, I'm getting it, I'm in. I was a fan of the very first game, and it was one of my favorites for the regular Nintendo. So I was like, I gotta do this. This is amazing. Let's get to it. And the moment I come in and you go to the transceiver, transceiver, and you hear David Hayter speak as Snake, I was floored. I was like, this is not just a game. This is like a whole interactive immersion that you're in, and the story is just fantastic. It begins as just like a simple, all right, well, terrorists have taken over a nuclear base and you have to take it out. So it almost starts like a Die Hard type of thing, and then you realize it's a whole other set of circumstances that go in as you get deeper into the story. And to this day, the Psycho Mantis battle, it's been hard to replicate. And I have only beaten this game once. I definitely want to go through another playthrough of it. It's funny. I've beaten this one only once because it's harder. The Twin Snakes on GameCube, I've beaten like 3 times. Which is interesting because this is definitely a better version. But Twin Snakes has a couple of, it makes it a little bit easier, I think. But definitely for PlayStation purists, Metal Gear Solid is just amazing. And I would have to say it's like my 1A favorite PlayStation game. Because if I had to choose one out of them, and this was tough, this might be one of the toughest decisions I have. I look back at all the games I played and I'm like, which is the one I've liked the most and played the most? And, you know, there were some sports games I liked. There were the wrestling games I liked. You know, Attitude. I probably played Attitude and SmackDown 2 more than anything. But when it came down to which game did I really enjoy playing and got fully immersed in, you know, the franchise and the game, as I said before, that changed my whole outlook on games was Resident Evil. And they released really 4 games for PlayStation. The less said about Survivor, the better. But in going with you know, the canon of it, when the first game came out, I was like, holy shit, this is a George Romero movie I'm playing come to life. And you know, it was simple in its execution. Its story was great. I just loved the whole atmosphere behind it. And when they announced they were making a sequel, and this time the whole town was infected, I had to get it. And it is, as a result, my favorite PlayStation game, and that's Resident Evil 2. This is the original one I bought in 1998. Like I said, I never, when I got from PlayStation on, I very rarely traded off. But I'm glad I kept this because I would still play this from time to time. The PlayStation 3 had a greatest hits one that came out, and I played it again. The remake that came out 2 years ago is fantastic, and I really do kind of prefer that now. But I will say that I played the crap out of this, and I have everything unlocked. I made sure I went through everything, every playthrough, everything. But this was just amazing to play. You know, and it's funny because they gave you so many different options. It's like, okay, you play as Leon first and then you beat it. And then after you play the Leon part, then you play Claire. Well, what happens if you play as Claire first and then Leon? And they do so many different things, you know, where it catches where you're saving and what you're doing and where you're going with it. Some genuine scares through it in terms of some of the gameplay. Just Capcom really nailed it with Resident Evil 2, really did. And out of the three of the main games that came out, it is definitely my favorite. You know, Resident Evil 3 I do like a lot. It's my least favorite of the 3, but it's still a great game. I love the remakes that came out with it. I do play them a little bit more. But when it comes to like solid PlayStation games, as far as like my favorite goes, I have to give the nod to Resident Evil 2. All right. So those are just a few of my favorite games from PlayStation. What are some of yours? I'm very curious to see what you have to say. And if you like what you see, make sure to subscribe to the channel and check out what other goodies I have. But for now, this is Play Favorites. I'm Scott W. Perry, Slick D Gamer, signing off. Take care.